Good morning, everybody, and very welcome. I'm very happy to be amongst you. We have a mixed audience, I would say. So what I will do is present the basics of AKIS for those who have not really have this basis yet. And in a second presentation this morning, I will go more into depth on the innovation strand. So here in this first presentation, it is a bit mixed. So let's see. We start, of course, with the A of AKIS. What is AKIS? Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System. It's the combination, the organization and the interaction of all the persons, institutions, organizations who use and produce knowledge and innovation for agriculture and interrelated fields. And of course, our main players are farmers, foresters, advisors, researchers, farmers organizations, other organizations, NGOs, networks, retailers, services of all kind, and of course our ministries who all produce and need knowledge or work with it, let's say. And the aim of this AKIS introduction in our new CAP policy is to create really at the national or regional level or even more locally innovation ecosystems. And of course, within a country, we hope that they are interconnected, that there's not just one at the national level. If you have several regions, you definitely have to connect to those and maybe even more local with some leader groups or whatever. So the main aim is, of course, to have these knowledge flows, because we want more knowledge and innovation to come into the field and to be applied. That's our big aim. And we've put this all in an AKIS brief of 8 pages, and you see the link there below. I have to explain the A, because AKIS started in 2006. In fact, because researchers themselves felt that what they were doing didn't have sufficient impact. So they started with an AKIS group, and simply because they understood that this classical linear research model, researcher produces something, the advisor or anybody else brings it to the farmer, and the farmer is supposed to accept it and implement it, that model doesn't function anymore. Partly still it can be useful. It's not that it's completely outdated, but we need much more this interaction, and that's why we created this interactive innovation model. And this A of AKIS, as I said, is rather old already. Yes, 15 years now. We should have a birthday party maybe. But the A stands for much more than just agriculture. It is really cross-cutting, and it links to whatever farming and rural activities automatically relate to. So that goes on environment, climate, landscape, biodiversity, the whole environmental side, but as well to consumers and citizens, projects that connect those, food and non-food systems, so the whole value chain, including processing, transformation, distribution chains, retailers, and then, of course, not to forget rural areas and rural activities. So we didn't want to change the A because it's like Coca-Cola, you don't change your label, everybody knows it now, but it is important to know that it goes much further. And Kerstin already showed it earlier. It covers all the 9 objectives, including also the rural ones and those who link up to society and to cities. Now, this is an interesting one to take a look at for your own purposes, because when for the very first time in 2014, we have new studies ongoing who are going to try to update this, because with the EIP, we have already changed a lot, because in our projects, people have to work together. So automatically, we start more and more integrating our AKISs, but still the main lines are a bit like what you see here, that some countries are rather fragmented, where the institutions or the organizations work more silo-like on their own. and others have a lot of contact between them and are much more integrated. And then on the other axis, you see that some are weak because they don't have the money or they don't put the money into this AKIS, while others are really powerful and put a lot of money into knowledge and innovation. But that doesn't, of course, make that they are also integrated. You can put a lot of money in it, but still work on your own. So you see, we have this whole scala here of what we have in Europe as a variety of AKIS systems. And no matter where your country is on this map, what we want in this 7 years period coming is that you improve your AKIS, that there are more knowledge flows, that people from the different institutions, organizations, the farmers get involved, the advisors get involved. So it's all about creating those knowledge exchange and knowledge flows. So we see the farmer in the middle, of course, we are the cap, huh? We have to see the farmer in the middle, that's logic, but many other people are there around him, and a good AKIS strategy, what we expect to see in the cap plans, will bring actors together on a structured and regular basis. So we need to put a number of interventions in it or systems in it, so that there is continuous interaction, and this will speed up not only knowledge exchange, but from knowledge exchange and knowledge flows, you also get innovation, because where people talk to each other and exchange their needs, you get innovation. And most of all, because we include our end users, there's also much more implementation into practice. So I think that's about the last slide to bring you the basics of AKIS, because our interactive innovation model, it's quite important that you understand it, is based on what is here in this little square. So it's first of all collaboration, you've understood that, of course, to make various actors, scientific, non-scientific, organizational, whatever. They don't have to be all in the same project, not at all. Those who are needed for that project, you take in, and the rest, okay, if you don't need them, they don't need to be in your project, to make the best use of their complementary types of knowledge. So bring together scientific knowledge, practical knowledge, organizational knowledge, entrepreneurial knowledge, etc., in view of co-creation, meaning everybody is at the same level. There are no bosses, there is no hierarchy. The researcher is not more important than the farmer or the advisor with his practical knowledge. So you work all along the project together to co-create something that is ready to implement into practice. And also because we have these multipliers like advisors in, and we put a lot of emphasis in this cap, to quickly spread also those solutions to practice. We have too many advisors out there that are not involved in what we are doing in all these innovative projects and are not aware and not able to spread that to the farmers. So this is our interactive innovation model, and it's still as alive as when we started it at the very start. Of course, we have networks around that, linking all that. We will talk a lot later about this. So what is now our big challenge in this period? We had already the two policies, Horizon 2020 and the CAP connected, with under both interactive projects that are funded, are operational groups, which even can get money to prepare, then to implement them, and services to help them to come together to find the right actors, etc. And on the other hand, we have Horizon projects with multi-actor projects, which are also interactive. And there we have this involvement of operational groups that is strongly recommended. So the consortia are very much looking for this operational group. And immediately here you have a task of the ones that are in the middle, the networks. They should try to help our researchers to find these operational groups in order to get them involved in their European projects. And how practically is that done? On the EIP website, you have this big EU reservoir knowledge repository with practice abstracts, so very short 20-line abstracts of each of the projects. So all the projects are in, whether they are from the CAP, from the operational groups, or from Horizon 2020. So all those projects are in there, and also the contacts. So you can just go to the website and know who is doing what and how can I connect to that person very easily. So this is really about working together and spreading the results. And Kerstin already told it, we have a variety of operational group subjects. We have a kind of Green Deal avant la lettre with 65 operational groups on environmental issues. But this pie chart also shows you how diverse, how many things are tackled through our operational groups. And this is important. We can do a lot, and we will do even more when we tackle all 9 CAP objectives, because that was not the case in the past. And we discovered during this period, what is here in the red square, that our operational groups are a perfect test bed for CAP measures, where practitioners, who will be later the beneficiaries, for instance, of an agro-environmental measure, they can work together with researchers who have certain ideas to solve certain things, hopefully also with the authorities or with other experts involved. And such operational groups we have already in Ireland, but meanwhile also in the Netherlands and in Germany, and it's spreading out, hopefully as a virus. These operational groups can help you to make a much better CAP intervention, I must say. In the current period, we speak about CAP intervention. And this is something we discovered just because Ireland started with it, and it was a very good example, because it's much better than somebody behind an office drafting measures. So don't forget that this is a great opportunity also for eco schemes, for agro-environmental measures, but also for other measures. Now, up to the change. We have, on the one hand, for the next period, we have continuation. We will have still operational groups and probably even more, but we will also change. And our change is mainly in the fact that we are not only funding innovative projects, but we will now support them by this coming together of people in the AKIS on a regular basis. And this will make an innovation ecosystem where innovation can start, because people can talk to each other about their problems and their knowledge, and they will interlink people and projects. And that's why in the future CAP, we have our cross-cutting objective, which covers not only the economic 3 objectives, the environmental climate 3 objectives, and then the 3 rural and citizens objectives. The cross-cutting objectives works for all of them and is trying to support all of them. And this is our key article 102, which says what we expect from AKIS. And the importance is that you try to describe your strategic approach for the future of the AKIS. That's the first bullet. Second bullet is, in particular, we picked out 3 main pillars, let's say, of the AKIS. The AKIS is much broader than that, you already saw that. But if already advisors, researchers, and the CAP networks, if those can regularly work together within the framework of the whole AKIS, then we will already make a big, big move. So this is literally in the legislation in Article 102. And the result will be that we will have better advice, they will be more knowledgeable about all this innovative stuff, and there will also be innovation support. This is a new obligation. And on top of that, we will be able to make use of digital technologies, because we also ask member states to explain how they are going to tackle this. This one we're going to do very quickly because it's just an intervention logic to let you see all the articles that we have in the legislation. And why do I do this? Because they are dispersed all over the legislation. See, our objective is in Article 5. Our Article 102 is the main one with the strategic approach. But then the tools, they are under the rural development interventions. It's mainly Article 72 and 71 for knowledge exchange, advice, for EIP operational groups. And then we still have some details on operational groups and on advice in 2 other articles. And then here, accompanying all this at the side, we have the CAP networks, and that's Article 113. This is an overview where I just want to point you out, because of the time, the 4 big strands, and they are in red. So an AKIS strategic approach should have at least some knowledge flows that are linking up research with practice and, of course, with other people. Secondly, we have a huge task in strengthening farm advisory services within this member states' AKISs. We, of course, somebody already asked in the Mentimeter, of course, we will work with our operational groups and the EIP. The EIP is part of the AKIS and an important part, I would say, a key part of the AKIS. So we will also want to see work on that in the AKIS strategic approach. And last but not least, also our digital means will help us to make a lot of digital tools in our EIP operational groups, also to build and interlink knowledge reservoirs and the digital skills development. So what we want to see in section 8 of the CAP plans is explaining how all these things will be interrelated and will translate in a number of interventions. Because it's not just a list of interventions, it's also the coherence that we want to see, the strategy behind it. How do you do this? Because some things you might already have working very well in your country, maybe with national money, no need to focus on that. You focus on your specific needs and the gaps that you need to fill. Main action points at member states level are here. First of all, for the CAP networks, this comes from what we already collected from CAP proposals coming in, some interventions, some discussions, bilateral, also from the SCAR strategic working group. So it gives us already an idea what people are thinking about. And I was asked in one of the presentations to give a little overview on that. So for the CAP networks, definitely more learning. So filtering, translating, summarizing everything what is on the EIP EU website, these 3,000 operational groups, these 190 multi-actor projects, pick out what is useful for your country, make sure that it is understandable. So if it's another language, you use your simple Google Translate. There's nothing special, everybody does it, so that you have this knowledge exchange. Of course, to bring this to the field, organize a variety of knowledge events so that AKIS actors can meet and that they are all included in the knowledge exchange and knowledge building process. Be active on linkages between operational groups and horizon projects. We have our last presentation and discussion specifically on that one. And then overall, of course, foster innovation, support your operational groups, make sure they are visible on your website, that people can find them, that people know what they are doing and what knowledge they bring. Now, on researchers, they have to be, of course, more closely involved, interacting with farmers' needs and opportunities. What we expect from the EIP is becoming more and more clear in terms that we expect more operational groups, more frequent calls. Some countries only did 1 or 2 calls, and a farmer cannot wait for 3 years or 6 years with an idea. We will now have advance payments so that also smaller groups can come together and can really start as quick as possible. But of course, you managing authorities have to make that possible and try to make more frequent calls. In Sweden, the call is constantly open and they just have cut-off dates. And this is a very nice example that you can also see in our EIP webinar. Also, mixing of bottom-up calls where any new or crazy idea can come in and be tested, with some thematic calls if there are dedicated issues that need some attention. You can do a suggestive call or a real obligatory thematic call, so that you have a family of measures. There could be calls dedicated for short supply chains if you want to really emphasize this in your country. But on the other hand, don't forget also to capture the ideas that nobody thinks about and that really need to come bottom up from the grassroots. Kerstin already said we will have cross-border groups. There's a big interest in that. And then on advisors, through all this knowledge exchange, they will become more competent, because they were a bit on their own planet sometimes, not all. In particularly, the bigger institutions have less problems with that. But almost in every country where there is a big institute, you have an equal amount of private advisors running around, influencing the decisions of the farms. So we want to catch also those advisors in our web and get them coming to the trainings, profiting from all the knowledge coming from these innovative projects, so they will become more competent on all these fields. Also simplification, because one of the big hurdles for advisors has been this administrative burdens. No more public procurement. We have no more rules on certification. This is all gone, so it's going to be much more simple. And what came out of our EIP seminar is that many countries think about a transparent website where all the impartial advisors can present themselves with their curriculum vitae, tell themselves what experience that they have so that everybody can see it, and which operational groups, which projects maybe they have done. And working with vouchers is also something that many member states are thinking about. Innovation support becomes an obligation, so that's also a point to work on. And we still have the setting up of farm advisory services, and this can be used for, I wanted to show this little picture because I found it so great that in Lithuania there's this van with all this equipment in the van, which can measure the manure, the blood, the illnesses and everything. So these things are all possible now within our system. Then an overall point is, of course, if you want to do all that, you have to ensure that you have a nice finance envelope, because there's a lot of things to be done. And the main aim is, of course, to protect this public knowledge and public flows, that they're not in the hands of only those who deliver the inputs or the machines or whatever, because they are not willing to share, of course. They just want to gain profit, and they will explain their machine, but you can't expect them to give the full knowledge away that they have made themselves. So the whole idea behind this is to have this public knowledge, have emerging knowledge reservoirs. That's already happening at national level, national thematic networks, as we have them at EU level, multi-actor projects where people work together. Public back offices where all the knowledge is concentrated, with maybe some specialist advisors that are closely interacting with the field advisors, with research, with the CAP networks. The advisors amongst themselves working together in networks. Public digital advisory tools. Many multi-actor events, whatever they are, on farm, face-to-face, in the winter, in a room, whatever. And then, of course, not to forget the soft ways of putting just advisors' offices at the place of research and have these soft ways of seeing each other at the coffee machine or at the lunch. It doesn't cost anything, but it's very efficient and very informal, and it helps a lot to bring these people in the mood of certain things they are not aware about yet, that it is a big need. Now, from our Google Docs, Mark mentioned this already, I added this extra slide on this AKIS coordination body because there were plenty of questions about it. And let me explain you what an AKIS coordination body is. It is a person or a unit somewhere, most probably in the managing authorities because of the tasks you will see, that is following up this overall progress of the AKIS strategic approach, interlinking regularly to the many AKIS platforms, not only at national level, but also regional and many other levels. It's not the idea that this person or persons alone would do the work. They have to be very good networked to know how is our progress and how is everything going. They have to, of course, in regionalized countries, it's super important to interconnect with regional AKIS and their networks and the coordinators of those networks. They have to look which of the networks are working well and may need, and which others may need improvement. You know that each year in your CAP plan, you can do changes. So don't hesitate to say the measure is not working well. You can do every year adaptations, and we welcome this because it is something new, and new means learning. So we expect that interventions will have to be fine-tuned according to the experience that you will gain. So interaction or even having your coordination body in the managing authority is almost logic, because they are close then to CAP plan modifications to be done if it's needed. And don't forget, a CAP plan is not static. Each year, modifications are possible. They also will have some kind of responsibility in the new delivery model, because there are targets to be put and result indicators. So if they are the ones following the strategic approach, they will also follow up those things, not only by regular monitoring or evaluation and data that they have, but also with informal contacts through what we said here, to stay in close contact with all these networks, and in particular also with the CAP networks. And we expect them through all these connections, also with the other countries, maybe to find new ideas for AKIS interventions, supported by the networking that we will have in a dedicated 10 million Horizon Europe AKIS project, where we will have all the member states in, and they will regularly come together. We expect then also that the ministries join that, that there they will see what other countries are doing and get inspiration from that. And they will be working somehow together with our own facility, our own EIP network, so that these are not separate things. So please don't stick to the measures you have now. Measure 1 for vocational training, measure 2 for advice, measure 16 for our operational groups. Please be inventive, and I hope today that to show you a lot of inspiration. This coordination body should be the spider in the web of your country. So these are two main instruments for the future, this innovation support and back office, with a lot of places where you can find more. I can only tell you, don't be afraid, because Jean Monnet, the father of Europe, said, what stops us is the fear of change, but nevertheless, it's on change that our salvation depends. And this is still after more than 50 years, so 70 years, I should say, so very true. And I think this is a bit the case with AKIS and the whole new CAP, by the way. I see that a lot of things, people have more fear than needed. So please just tackle it and don't be afraid. We have lots of instruments to use, and you still have time to work with them. Our negotiations are not finished, but for us, for AKIS, EIP, advice and innovation, they are more or less changed, because overall member states and the Parliament were very happy with the Commission proposal. So it includes, for instance, what is new, a state aid derogation, an official state aid derogation for all operational groups up until 350,000 euro. And this will be published. It's on the way. It has passed all the committees and all whatever is needed. So we expect it now to be published soon, June, July. And it will go immediately into force so that even your operational groups in this period can still profit from it. Second, very important thing, and until now, we often saw operation groups growing from research. Why? Because these research institutes, they have big pockets, they have big budgets that they can immediately use, while an NGO, a small NGO or a farmer or a little advisors group, they cannot put so much money on the table to start it up. In Horizon, we have for many years advance payments, but it was not thought about at the beginning when we started up the EIP. And now this is solved. We have advance payments up until 50%, and we have this very special 80% instead of 43 EAFRD funding, which will make our EIP operation groups much more attractive. So this is the most important from this slide. I leave you to read all the rest. Secondly, in our negotiations, everybody was very happy with this overhaul of the old farm advisory system into a very broad system where all advisors are welcome and will get more competencies through the connections with the AKIS, get more in contact with research and innovation, have to cover economic, ecological and environmental domains. There's an obligation for innovation support. So I think those are the most important things. Just this last line I want to read for you, because this is new for CAP networks. We had it for LAGs, but now also existing, not cross-border operational groups that are still forming, they are cross-border from the very start. But with all this knowledge exchange, you will also discover that there are operational groups in other countries working maybe on similar things than your operational groups. So it could be very important to bring those together for a few meetings to exchange, or even with a webinar or whatever, to exchange what they are doing and to learn from each other. And this can be supported by the CAP networks. So I think this is a great extra possibility that now operational groups also have. And this brings me to more info. You have the website link here, because we did a 2.5-day seminar already on CAP strategies in September. And you can see everything what we did there. We have 10 nice AKIS interventions that are brought by the people themselves that have experience with them. There were also online discussions, etc. We have a SCAR AKIS report with particular sections that would be very useful for you. You can see them here, mostly in chapter 1, and also in chapter 4 on advisory. You have a lot of information. Website is there. And this brings me to the closure, to say that somebody like a sheepdog has to now push the sheep up to make more knowledge exchange, to get out of their silos, to work together. And this is what is important in our next period. I thank you a lot for your attention.